Welcome everybody to the next session of Job's response to misery. We didn't get through everything I wanted to get through last week. If you have a Bible handy, it might be good for you to have a Bible to look at as we go through it. I'll read through the text and make comments from time to time. In my outline, we're continuing the dialogue, the poetic section of Job. I have down here chapters 9 through 19. We're not going to get that far. That's too ambitious, but we'll see how far we get. Just as a reminder, I'm using two books in addition to the Bible text. The first is Job, a new translation with introduction and commentary by Marvin H. Pope, professor of Northwest Semitic languages at Yale, and Job, a new translation by Edward L. Greenstein, professor emeritus of Bible at Bar Ilan University in Israel. So those are my two expert witnesses. I think we got up through chapter 8 last time, so I'm going to start with chapter 9. First of all, I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions or comments from what we went over last week. Okay, let's get started. Job chapter 9. Job, this is Job's response to Bildad, one of his friends. You know, their friends are Bildad, Zophar, and Eliphaz. So the response to Bildad. Then Job answered, "Indeed, I know that this is so, but how could a mortal be just before God? If one wished to contend with him, one could not answer him once in 1,000. He is wise in heart and mighty in strength. Who has resisted him and succeeded? He who removes mountains, and they do not know it, when he overturns them in his anger, who shakes the earth out of its place and its pillars tremble, who commands the sun and it does not rise, who seals up the stars, who alone is stretched up." Yes?
Are we in prose now? Is this no longer poetry?
This is poetry. This is still, we're going to be in poetry for a long time.
I don't see the same kind of parallelism here.
There is parallelism. For instance, I just read verse 7, who commands the sun and it does not rise, who seals up the stars. So there, the first line has the sun, second line has the stars. So that's the parallelism in that verse. Okay. Verse 8, who alone stretched out the heavens and trampled the waves of the sea. The sea here refers again to the sea monster Leviathan, who was confined to the sea by God. Leviathan symbolizes the chaos before creation. So an alternate translation of this would be, and trampled the back of the sea monster. Verse 9, who made the bear and Orion, and Pleiades in the chambers of the south. Those are constellations. Who does great things beyond understanding and marvelous things without number. Look, he passes by me and I do not see him. He moves on, but I do not perceive him. He snatches away. Who can stop him? Who will say to him, what are you doing? Verse 13, God will not turn back his anger. The helpers of Rahab bowed beneath him. Rahab is another word for one of the monsters of chaos. How then can I answer him, choosing my words with him? Though I am innocent, I cannot answer him. I must appeal for mercy to my accuser. So his God is the one to appeal to for mercy, but the irony here is God is also Job's accuser. If I summoned him and he answered me, I do not believe that he would listen to my voice. For he crushes me with a tempest. and multiplies my wounds without cause. He will not let me get my breath, but fills me with bitterness. If it is a contest of strength, he is the strong one. If it is a matter of justice, who can summon him? Though I am innocent, my own mouth would condemn me. That's probably a mistake in translation. Though I am innocent, his mouth would condemn me. Though I am blameless, he would prove me perverse. I am blameless. I do not know myself. I loathe my life. It is all one. Therefore I say, or in other words, it's all the same. Therefore I say, he destroys both the blameless and the wicked. Both the blameless and the wicked come to the same end. When disaster brings sudden death, he mocks at the calamity of the innocent. This is another translation reads, when disaster brings death to fools, he mocks at the calamity of the innocent. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covers the eyes of its judges. If it is not he, who then is it? My days are swifter than a runner. They flee away. They see no good. They go by like skiffs of reed, like an eagle swooping on the prey. If I say I will forget my complaint, I will put off my sad countenance and be of good cheer, I become afraid of all my suffering, for I know you will not hold me innocent. I shall be condemned. Why then do I labor in vain? If I wash myself with soap and cleanse my hands with lye, yet you will plunge me into filth, and my own clothes will abhor me. For he is not a mortal as I am, that I might answer him, that we should come to trial together. There is no umpire between us who might lay his hand on us both. If he would take his rod away from me and not let dread of him terrify me, then I would speak without fear of him, for I know I am not what I am thought to be. That's chapter 9. So Job is again lamenting his fate. And in chapter 10, he goes on to talk about loathing his life. I loathe my life. I will give free utterance to my complaint. I will speak in the bitterness of my soul. So he's gradually changing his tune as he go along. Remember back in the first chapter, he told his wife to be quiet, and we have to take the good along with the bad, don't we? Right? Well, now here he's planning an argument with God. So he's kind of changing his opinion of what he should do. He says, verse 2, I will say to God, do not condemn me. Let me know why you contend against me. Does it seem good to you to oppress, to despise the work of your hands, and favor the schemes of the wicked? Do you have eyes of flesh? Do you see as humans see? Are your days like the days of mortals, or your years like human years? That you seek out my iniquity and search for my sin? Although you know that I am not guilty, and there is no one to deliver out of your hand. Your hands fashioned and made me, and now you turn and destroy me. Remember that you fashioned me like clay. Will you turn me to dust again? Did you not, this is verse 10, did you not pour me out like milk and curdle me like cheese? This is a strange reference, isn't it? This probably refers to the formation of an embryo in the womb. Curdle me like cheese. So he's talking about when he was conceived. You clothed me with skin and flesh and knit me together with bones and sinews. You have granted me life and steadfast love, and your care has preserved my spirit. Yet these things you hid in your heart. I know that this was your purpose. If I sin, you watch me and do not acquit me of my iniquity. If I am wicked, woe to me. If I'm righteous, I cannot lift up my head, for I am filled with disgrace and look upon my affliction. Bold as a lion, you hunt me. You repeat your exploits against me. You renew your witnesses against me and increase your vexation toward me. You bring fresh troops against me. There's a military reference there. Why did you bring me forth from the womb? Would that I had died before any eye had seen me. Again, he laments the fact that he was ever born. And were as though I had not been carried from the womb to the grave. Are not the days of my life few? Let me alone that I may find a little comfort before I go, never to return to the land of gloom and deep darkness, the land of gloom and chaos, where light is like darkness. That refers to the abode of the dead, Sheol, the abode of the dead. They didn't think it was a very pleasant existence after they died. We have a much different idea of things today. Well, Job is done with this speech now. After 2 chapters, he's done. And chapter 11, now Zophar gets another chance to speak. I guess this is Zophar's first discourse. Then Zophar the Naamathite answered, should a multitude of words go unanswered, and should one full of talk be vindicated? He's telling Job he talks too much. Should your babble put others to silence? And when you mock, shall no one shame you? For you say, my conduct is pure, and I am clean in God's sight. But oh, that God would speak to you and open his lips to you, and that he would tell you the secrets of wisdom, for wisdom is many-sided. Know then that God exacts of you less than your guilt deserves. Ouch. Wow. Job is suffering greatly, and Zophar is telling him, God exacts of you less than your guilt deserves.
Salt in the wound, huh?
Yes, yes. His so-called friends are good at doing that sort of thing. And he takes them to task, and I don't know whether we'll get to that today, but he does take them to task for the way they've been treating him. Chapter 11, verse 7. Can you find out the deep things of God? Can you find out the limit of the Almighty? It is higher than heaven. What can you do? Deeper than Sheol. What can you know? Its measure is longer than the earth and broader than the sea. If he passes through and imprisons and assembles for judgment, who can hinder him? For he knows those who are worthless. When he sees iniquity, will he not consider it? Verse 12 is a funny verse. But a stupid person will get understanding when a wild ass is born human. Or where a wild ass is born to a human, it could be. Verse 13, if you direct your heart rightly, you will stretch out your hands toward him. If iniquity is in your hand, put it far away, and do not let wickedness reside in your tents. Surely then you will lift up your face without blemish. Or it could be, surely then your estate will be lifted up without blemish. His goods will be restored to him. You will be secure and will not fear. You will forget your misery. You will remember it as waters that have passed away. And your life will be brighter than the noonday. Its darkness will be like the morning. And you will have confidence because there is hope. You will be protected and take your rest in safety. You will lie down and no one will make you afraid. Many will entreat your favor. But the eyes of the wicked will fail. All way of escape will be lost to them. And their hope is to breathe their last. So that's Zophar's opinion.
Which is what he did predict the future, though, because Job did get his worldly possessions and status back at the end, you know.
He did. Everything was restored back to him. That's great. That's right.
Except I'm not sure that Zophar would agree that he got his stuff back because he repented,
Yeah.
or because he did anything himself.
Right.
And that seems to be what Zophar is saying, and his other friends, in air quotes, that, you know, if you were better, none of this would happen.
Yeah. True.
They're all truisms, aren't they, Pat?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, these are the words of his friends they're reciting things that they have learned, right? They're not really giving him advice. It's more reciting things that they have heard.
They're lecturing him.
Yes, correct. Chapter 12. Now Job is going to answer Zophar and the rest of his friends too. Then Job answered, "No doubt you are the people, and wisdom will die with you." This requires a little explanation. No doubt you are the people. What does that mean? This may be a play on words. There's an Egyptian word that means intelligent, and sounds the same as a Hebrew word that means people. So Job might be saying, no doubt you are the intelligent people, but wisdom will die with you. You're going to kill off wisdom, right? Job then defends himself, but I have understanding as well as you. I am not inferior to you. Who does not know such things as these? These are, what you're saying is all obvious. I am a laughingstock to my friends, I who called upon God, and he answered me. A just and blameless man, I am a laughingstock. Those at ease have contempt for misfortune, but it is ready for those whose feet are unstable. The tents of robbers are at peace, and those who provoke God are secure, who bring their God in their hands. This is a confusing, these three verses are confusing. The notes in my study Bible they say the Hebrew text is difficult and may be misleadingly translated. Let me offer a different translation. Might be make a little bit more sense. This is Greenstein's translation of those three verses. One who laughs at calamity and disaster calls out to God and is answered. The laugh of the holy righteous, he shows contempt for catastrophe. At a time of demonstration is at ease. He is firm when the foot might stumble. Tents are tranquil at a time of marauders, secure at a time of those who rile God, at whatever the hand of God has wrought. I don't know if that's makes any more sense or not, but that's an alternate translation. At any rate, these verses are confusing. Verse 7, but ask the animals and they will teach you. Now, see, his friends said, ask the elders. Look at your elders. Listen to them. Look at the teachings of the ancestors. And Job says, I don't have to do that. I can just look at God's creation and see what's true. But ask the animals, they will teach you. The birds of the air, and they will tell you. Ask the plants of the earth, and they will teach you. The fish of the sea will declare to you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every living thing, and the breath of every human being. Does not the ear test words as the palate tastes food? Is wisdom with the aged and understanding in length of days? So he repeats again, Are the old folks the only ones with wisdom, the elders?
Just a point of interest there, that passage, that selection of verses were the theme verses for outdoor school when I was teaching at Valley Catholic.
Ah, is that right?
And so there are a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of kids with T-shirts that on the front have Job, and I can't remember now which verses, but those verses in Job on the front. Most of the time we forgot to bring that up to the kids, but that was our basic point: is the animals will teach you, creation will teach you. So a little different, different context, but
yeah, good. Verse 13, with God are wisdom and strength. He has counsel and understanding. If he tears down, no one can rebuild. If he shuts someone in, no one can open up. So here he's bringing back some of the words of his friends who say, well, God is the one who builds. Job turns that around. If he tears down, no one can rebuild. If he shuts someone in, no one can open up. His friends told him about the God who sends rain to water the earth. Job says in verse 15, if he withholds the waters, they dry up. If he sends them out, they overwhelm the land. So yes, God controls the rain, but also God sends drought and floods. With him are strength and wisdom. The deceived and the deceiver are his. He leads counselors away stripped and makes fools of judges. He looses the sash of kings and binds a waistcloth on their loins. Let me say a word about that verse. The sash of kings could be a couple of things. It could refer to the belt that holds a king's suit of armor on. So looses the sash of kings would mean take away their armor. Could also mean something, I like this second meaning a little bit better. See, back in those days, they wore long robes. But when they would run into battle, it was too hard to run with those long robes on. So they would tie up the robes around their thighs, effectively turning the robe into shorts so they could easily run. That was called girding your loins. Okay. The sash there may refer to girding of the loins. I like that because there's a parallelism with the second half, and binds a waistcloth on their loins. Waistcloth. You remember in John 13, Jesus washes the disciples' feet, and we read that Jesus took off his outer robe and tied a towel around his waist. And that's the towel he used to dry the disciples' feet, like a slave would. So what this verse is saying is he turns kings into slaves. Right? He leads priests away stripped and overthrows the mighty. He deprives of speech those who are trusted and takes away the discernment of the elders. He pours contempt on princes and looses the belt of the strong. There's that reference to a belt again. Probably that in this context, it probably does refer to a suit of armor. He uncovers the deeps out of darkness and brings deep darkness to light. He makes nations great, then destroys them. He enlarges the nations, then leads them away. He strips understanding from the leaders of the earth and makes them wander in a pathless waste. He strips understanding. Literally, he removes their heads. It's a metaphor for taking away their brains. 25, they grope in the dark without a light. He makes them stagger like a drunkard. Chapter 13, Job goes on. Look, my eye has seen all this. My ear has heard and understood it. What you know, I also know. I'm not inferior to you. but I would speak to the Almighty, and I desire to argue my case with God. So now he's planning his legal argument. As for you, he's referring to his friends now. As for you, you whitewash with lies. All of you are worthless physicians. It may be a better translation to say, as for you, you smear with lies as worthless physicians smear on useless ointment.
Mm.
If you would only keep silent, that would be your wisdom. If you were silent, you'd be wiser than you are when you're talking. Hear now my reasoning and listen to the pleadings of my lips. Will you speak falsely for God and speak deceitfully for him? Could be to God. Will you speak falsely to God and speak deceitfully to him? Job is asking his friends, what if God asks you to testify? Would you tell the truth? Verse 8, will you show partiality toward him, and will you plead the case for God? Will it be well with you when he searches you out? Or can you deceive him as one person deceives another? He will surely rebuke you if in secret you show your partiality. Will not his majesty terrify you, and the dread of him fall upon you? Your maxims are proverbs of ashes. Your defenses are defenses of clay. In other words, their responses to what Job is saying are responses of clay. They fall apart. Verse 13, let me have silence and I will speak, and let come on me what may. He's saying here he's going to, whatever happens, even if he loses his life, he's going to stand up for himself. I will take my flesh in my teeth and put my life in my hand. See, he will kill me. I have no hope, but I will defend my ways to his face. This will be my salvation, and the godless shall not come before him. Listen carefully to my words and let my declaration be in your ears. I have indeed prepared my case. I know that I shall be vindicated. Who is there that will contend with me? For then I would be silent and die. So Job is now determined to argue his case before God. And in verse 20, now he speaks directly to God. Only grant two things to me, that I will not hide myself from your face. Then I will not hide myself from your face. Withdraw your hand far from me, and do not let dread of you terrify me. Then call and I will answer, or let me speak and you reply to me. How many are my iniquities and my sins? Make me know my transgression and my sin. He's asking God, what did I do wrong? Tell me what I did wrong. Why do you hide your face and count me as your enemy? Will you frighten a wind-blown leaf and pursue dry chaff? For you write bitter things against me and make me reap the iniquities of my youth. You put my feet in the stocks and watch all my paths. You set a bound to the soles of my feet. But this is probably, it could be better translated here. Greenstein points out that if your feet are in stocks, you're not going to be walking anywhere. So this verse doesn't make a lot of sense. He translates it, you put lime on my feet. In other words, a visible powder that will leave marks when he walks. You put lime on my feet and watch all my steps. You follow the tracks of my feet. Verse 28 doesn't belong here. I'm going to read that between verses 2 and 3 of chapter 14. So moving on to 14. A mortal born of woman, few of days and full of trouble, comes up like a flower and withers, flees like a shadow and does not last. So born of a woman is just a phrase that emphasizes the human character of someone. He's really a human. You might say, well, of course, mortals are born of women. That's how it works. But it emphasizes his humanity.
Steve, question.
Yeah.
What are Luther's comments on Job?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, to me, he's acting like Luther did before he came up with, I'm saved by grace here.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Well, even Paul, he challenged, he was going to go to the emperor, right?
Yes.
And Luther was the same way. I mean, he was going to be in the court of judgment there.
Yeah.
Here I stand, I can do no other.
Yeah. He defended himself. True. I
don't know if that means that they're all right or they're all wrong. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, at least they stood up for themselves, didn't they?
Well, your point is kind of that God is saying he's impenetrable. You cannot possibly know, right? And so by challenging me, you're actually being somewhat blasphemous or something like that.
Well, Job's friends certainly think so. They call him to account for feeling the way he does.
But then if you listen to Pastor Mark talk about the Psalms, he says that's what David does all through the Psalms, and he counsels us to do the same.
Yeah.
So go figure.
Right. So this verses 1 and 2 here, or verse 2, comes up like a flower and withers, flees like a shadow and does not last. The Hebrew words for fleas and blossoms are similar. So this is a little play on words here in verse 2. Comes up like a flower and withers, flees like a shadow and does not last. Now we insert verse 28 from chapter 13. One wastes away like a rotten thing, like a garment that is moth-eaten. Verse 3, do you fix your eyes on such a one? Do you bring me into judgment with you? Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? No one can. He's talking about bringing something kosher out of something that's not kosher. Since their days are determined and the number of their months is known to you, and you have appointed the bounds that they cannot pass. Look away from them and desist, that they may enjoy like laborers their days. He's asking God to let mortals enjoy their days. Verse 7, for there is hope for a tree. Now he's now going to contrast a tree with a human. For there is hope for a tree, if it is cut down, that it will sprout again, and that its shoots will not cease. We had a rhododendron bush in our backyard a few years ago during a summer drought. It apparently was dead, so we cut it down. Well, a couple of years ago, here comes sprouts up from the stump, and that rhododendron is growing again. So that's what he's referring to here, is exactly that. Though its root grows old in the earth and its stump dies in the ground, yet at the scent of water it will bud and put forth branches like a young plant. But mortals die and are laid low. Humans expire, and where are they? Mm-hmm. As waters fail from a lake and a river wastes away and dries up, so mortals lie down and do not rise again. Until the heavens are no more, they will not wake or be roused out of their sleep. So the sleep, and that's the sleeping Sheol. So he goes on then, oh, that you would hide me in Sheol. He said, that's a good hiding place because you can't see me there. Oh, that you would hide me in Sheol, that you would conceal me until your wrath is past. that you would appoint me a set time and remember me. If mortals die, will they live again? All the days of my service, I would wait until my release should come. You would call, and I would answer you. You would long for the work of your hands. He's saying, God, you would miss me. You would long for the work of your hands. For then you would not number my steps. You would not keep watch over my sin. My transgression would be sealed up in a bag, and you would cover over my iniquity. Verse 18, but the mountain falls and crumbles away, and the rock is removed from its place. The waters, now he's comparing mortals to stones here. The waters wear away the stones, the torrents wash away the soil of the earth, so you destroy the hope of mortals. Our hope is destroyed like the earth erodes away. You prevail forever against them and they pass away. You change their countenance and send them away. Change their countenance he's referring to the way he has been disfigured because of his suffering. Their children come to honor and they do not know it. They are brought low and it goes unnoticed. They feel only the pain of their own bodies and mourn only for themselves. This is kind of depressing stuff, isn't it? Now, Eliphaz gets to talk again. This is the second discourse of Eliphaz. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered, should the wise answer with windy knowledge and fill themselves with the east wind? The east wind was a wind from the desert. It was hot. So Eliphaz is saying, Job, you're full of hot air. Should they argue in unprofitable talk or in words with which they can do no good? But you are doing away with the fear of God and hindering meditation before God. Now, Edward Greenstein has something to say about this verse. Greenstein is the one that identified that section in chapter 4 that was out of place, which many translators assume is a revelation to Eliphaz, when in fact it's a revelation given to Job. And we know that because of this verse. I want to read Greenstein's translation of verse 4. You go so far as to abrogate piety and expropriate talk from the presence of God. Apparently, it was a grave sin to listen in on the conversations among the heavenly beings. And that's what Eliphaz is accusing Job of doing in this revelation that God supposedly gave to Job. For your iniquity teaches your mouth, and you choose the tongue of the crafty. Your own mouth condemns you, and not I. Your own lips testify against you. You have repeated what was said in the heavenly council. Are you the firstborn of the human race? Were you brought forth before the hills? Have you listened in the counsel of God? There's the sin of eavesdropping on conversation in the heavenly council. And do you limit wisdom to yourself? What do you know that we do not know? What do you understand that is not clear to us? The gray-haired and the aged are on our side, those older than your father. There's the elders. He's bringing up the elders again. Are the consolations of God too small for you, or the word that deals gently with you? Why does your heart carry you away, and why do your eyes flash? So that you turn your spirit against God and let such words go out of your mouth. Now Eliphaz repeats Job's words and sort of turns them against him. Verse 14, what are mortals that they can be clean? or those born of woman that they can be righteous. God puts no trust even in his holy ones, and the heavens are not clean in his sight. That he's taking, I mean, it's not a perfect quote, but he's paraphrasing Job's previous words. But then he takes it farther, he takes it further. Verse 16, how much less one who is abominable and corrupt, one who drinks iniquity like water. Yeah, that didn't come from Job. Those are the words of Eliphaz turning Job's words against him. I will show you, listen to me, what I have seen I will declare, what sages have told and their ancestors have not hidden, to whom alone the land was given and no stranger passed among them. In other words, no foreigner tainted the land by walking on it. The wicked writhe in pain for all their days through all the years that are laid up for the ruthless. Terrifying sounds are in their ears. In prosperity, the destroyer will come upon them. They despair of returning from darkness, and they are destined for the sword. They wander abroad for bread, saying, where is it? They know that a day of darkness is ready at hand. Distress and anguish terrify them, but they prevail against them like a king prepared for battle. I wonder if I can get through this chapter before we have to leave. Because they stretched out their hands against God and bid defiance to the Almighty, running stubbornly against him with a thick-bossed shield. Because they have covered their faces with their fat and gathered fat upon their loins. That probably is exactly what it means. They have overconsumed until they're obese. They will live in desolate cities, in houses that no one should inhabit, houses destined to become heaps of ruins. Excuse me. They will not be rich, will not endure, nor will they strike root in the earth or take root in the earth. They will not escape from darkness, and the flame will dry up their shoots, and their blossom will be swept away by the wind. Let them not trust in emptiness, deceiving themselves, for emptiness will be their recompense. It will be paid in full before their time, and their branch will not be green. They will shake off their unripe grape like the vine, and cast off their blossoms like the olive tree. So their unripe fruit will fall to the ground, and the blossoms of the tree will fall to the ground. For the company of the godless is barren, and the fire consumes the tents of bribery. They conceive mischief and bring forth evil, and their heart prepares deceit. This is a metaphor of giving birth to evil. I would like it a little better if it were translated, they conceive mischief and give birth to evil. Their bellies generate deceit. It literally is bellies in the Hebrew. We in our culture, we use the metaphor of the heart being the seat of emotion. Well, back then they thought about their guts as the seat of emotion. So it really is bellies, and the translator makes that transition to heart because that's what we understand. But with this metaphor of giving birth to evil, I think it would be better if he left it, their bellies generate deceit. We're getting toward near the end of our time. I'm not going to start the next chapter. We'll continue with that next week. Any comments, questions so far?
Something occurred to me when you were talking about Job's argument to God. It reminded me so much of the story of Jonah, who sort of had the same technique of arguing with God, and it didn't work out so well for him.
Yeah. Well, Jonah said, well, if this is after the people of Nineveh repented, he went and sat out in the desert and said, well, God, if this is what being a prophet means, just kill me now. So yes, it's very much like what Job is saying.
Well, you know, even Jesus, you know, on the cross, he said, my God, why have you forsaken me?
True.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Of course, immediately, since he's God, he said, not my will, but your will be done.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah,
make that
Jesus.
transition a lot easier than the rest of us mortals.
Yeah. Jesus quoted from Psalm 22, I think 3 times.
Steve, when you were talking about that last verse, when it talked about, you were talking about the belly, Peterson's translation says, their lives are wombs for breeding deceit.
Yes, that's good. I like that. I like that. It was thought that the belly was the seat of emotion. The womb, in the case of a woman, I don't know what that means for a man's ability to feel emotion, but they thought of the womb as the seat of a woman's emotion, and the bowels as the seat of a man's emotion. Anything else? Well, we're getting to the end of our time. They're going to cut us off here in a minute. So thank you all for coming today, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Welcome.
Yes.